Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the FighterHeart podcast. I'm sitting here with Mark. Thanks for taking the time, Mark.
Yeah, no problem. Really excited to be here, Joe, to talk to you today.
For sure. We really appreciate you being here, man. Here we like to get into it right away. If you could, just give us a little bit of your background, maybe where you grew up, and a little bit of your upbringing, and then, get right into your FighterHeart story, and then, we'll take it from there.
Sure. Okay. So my name is Mark Fuglevand. I was originally born in Spokane, Washington. So that's up north. And it was at the age of 5, my parents got divorced. So I ended up moving down to Southern California, where my mom's from. And so I lived there. I've been living kind of around the Southern California area ever since, popping around from the San Fernando Valley to going farther south, closer to Orange County, which is kind of heading towards San Diego for those that aren't familiar. But yeah, I've been pretty much growing up around here and went. I got injured when I was 18 years old, which I'll talk a little bit more about that. But I went to college to become an accountant, and I'm now married. I have 2 kids. My wife and I have our own accounting practice locally here, and I have my own business abilities where I create adaptive tools for the community, which I'll get into as well. But yeah, pretty much big sports guy. I love to barbecue, and I'm very active with my kids. They both play a lot of sports, so I'm constantly out at weird times and going to random places for club soccer and football. So
That's
yeah,
awesome. Get into your FighterHeart story, kind of
yeah,
where
yeah,
did
sure.
what really happened in your case?
Yeah, so for me, growing up by the beach, I love the water. I was going out constantly, and this was no different. This was in the summer of 1995. I was working a job at a deli where I was a cashier, and one day after work, one of my friends that worked there, she wanted to go to the beach, and because it was a beautiful day, and so I said, yeah, let's go check it out, and so we went to a beach that I wasn't super familiar with, where the waves are pretty much breaking right there on PCH, right on the sand. And I decided to run out because I saw this wave forming and dive into it, thinking that I would just, duck dive under it and kind of pop out the back like I'd done 1,000 times. Um,
How long ago was this, by the way?
this was in 1995, so I was 18 years old.
Okay. And you had been surfing a lot?
But yeah, I mean, bodyboarding mostly, but I mean, I'd surf too. And I mean, I was constantly in the water. So, I mean, I was pretty comfortable with the ocean and high tide, low tide, and just my understanding of how the ocean floor would change. But foolishly, I didn't walk out before I dove into this wave that was pretty much breaking right there on the beach. And when I dove into it, I hit sand, just smacked right in the sand. So because of that, I broke my C5 vertebrae, which what ends up happening is when you have some type of trauma to the spinal cord up here, you're susceptible to paralysis of above the chest, even as high as the neck area. So that's why they call it quadriplegic. It's 4 affected areas.
Oh,
So at the time, I didn't know. When the impact happened, I had to kind of hold my breath until someone could pull me out of the water, which I was fortunate that there were other people on the beach that heard the person I was with screaming to come and help. But it was later after I was airlifted to the hospital that I found out what had happened and how I had kind of pinched my cord, which resulted in what I later found out was an incomplete injury. So with an incomplete injury, you have the opportunity to get sensation and function back below your level of injury, but that isn't always the case. So I didn't know that was a good thing at the time, but I just knew that I was a quadriplegic. I could be like this for the rest of my life, and that I'd have to figure out ways to do a lot of the basic tasks all over again. And so that was pretty tough for me to hear at 18 years old. That was my senior year of high school. The summer was ending. I had already applied to a bunch of colleges. I was going to go to a local university, and things were like exciting, right? So a good time in my life, and so this was like a real setback
I can
uh,
imagine,
to have
yeah.
that happen. But um, you know, fortunately, like I had a really good support system. And I think that's huge. I'm learning more that about giving back in that regard now. Like I think being able to have people that are out there to help you gives you that right mindset to kind of move beyond your circumstances. So for me at the time, that was huge, and I think sports actually helped a lot too, because I kind of had this mindset of, all right, I now have to live myself by a different playbook, a different set of rules. And as much as that sucks, that's okay. If I live within that, then I can be successful. I just need to figure out what that means, you know? So I
Mhm.
tried to compare myself to what my life was before. It was more, okay, this is the reset. This is the new me. How do I move on beyond this with the resources available to me? And so that's kind of how my rehabilitation went. Like just starting from day one, trying to figure out how to, feed myself. Well, I'll even back up. Just being able to sit up in a bed.
Yeah.
But the blood pressure issues was a huge deal in rehab. Just very small baby steps, but I didn't look at it as I needed to get to the finish line tomorrow. It was more like this is going to take time. How do I proceed? Like, what's the path? Rely on my physicians and therapists, and just really buy into the process. That was huge. Was just trying to accept. I don't like to say accept, but just say like this is what I'm doing now, and just give it my all. And that's kind of where I was at. I was fortunate enough to have that kind of mentality at the time, because I know a lot of people spend quite a few months just kind of blaming the world and being in a dark place, and I get that, but I still wanted to have so much happen in my life. I had all these goals, so I figured if I can get this in check, then the rest will kind of happen. No matter what that looks like, I knew it could happen. I just had to believe in it. So
Yeah. How did you know that? Like, how did you have that kind of confidence to know that things would be better if you just got your mind state right?
honestly, I attribute it to having so many people in my court just saying like, you can do it, man. Like you can do all these things. But I just felt like, from the start, I was very vulnerable and open about, what I was struggling with. And I think having that communication with whether it was a doctor or a therapist or my family, I think that kind of helped me process everything. There's a lot of different ways you can go about this, and some people really just hold on to, I'm going to walk again, and they just instantly go to this very hardcore rehab, thinking that they're gonna walk, and that's great. I think it's good to have that positive feeling, but for me, I think I soon after being like feeling sorry for myself, I just realized, okay, maybe I won't walk, but like, what's the transition look like? What, do I just have to enjoy life in a wheelchair? Do I have to, use tools to be able to be independent, or can I use the existing muscles I have to relearn how to, do tasks? What does that look like? And for me, it was a challenge, and I don't know, in kind of like a weird way, I enjoyed the thought of I had purpose now. Like I had a challenge ahead of me to overcome these things. I don't know if that was the sports mind.
Yeah,
It
competitive.
just it just kind of like was like proving people wrong. Like, there were so many people saying like, oh, this is your life now. It's gonna suck. You're gonna be in a wheelchair. You probably won't be able to do a whole lot of things. Like I didn't really believe that.
Is that like more the doctors? I'm sure like people close to you weren't saying that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the doctors kind of have to be very careful what they say, right? So for them, it was kind of looking at statistics. Statistically, you're not going to uh, have a career or be successful or have a family or all of these things. And I don't know. It just I didn't get the love from them that I thought that I was going to, or the positivity.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was just kind of more like, well, what do you want to do, Mark? Like, what do you want to do with your life? And we'll support you in that kind of thing. Because clearly there's people that you can't change their mind
Yeah.
about what they want to do because they're very upset about the circumstances, which I completely understand.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, I wanted to live. Like I wanted to have all the things that I had before. Like I was more pissed off, like, why was this taken away from me? Well, let's figure out how I can get it, still have those things.
Yeah. So
So yeah,
being angry didn't help you. So like
no, but
you
I did
understand.
go through that. I did, I think what was nice is my parents realized they just took a step back and said, let's let him, you know, scrape his knees, figure out where the bottom is, and then kind of work his way up. And I think about that a lot because, you know, as a parent now, I realized how much of a jerk I was because I didn't allow my parents to kind of share how they felt about all this. Like, I'm sure that my mom was just dying inside knowing like that this happened to her child. And I didn't allow her to feel those feelings. That was something that the caseworkers had told her. She told me later that they said, like, you got to suppress that and just be strong for him. And I totally get that, but I feel bad. Like, now that I'm a parent and I see like if my kids get hurt or if they're struggling with something and I want to help them, the thought of like having to just kind of keep my mouth shut and express to them like that it hurts, that they're hurting.
Yeah.
It that really upset me that I was like that. But I mean, it was all part of the journey and the process. It just had to happen.
Yeah. So to rewind a little bit, so when you initially got the injury, so you were bodyboarding, you said, not surfing?
I was just swimming, so
Oh, you were just diving in the
yeah,
water.
I ran out and I saw this wave and I just put my hands in front and I dove in it, thinking I was just gonna go through it and pop up the back, and I just went smack right into a bunch of sand. It was a sandbar.
And
So
then right away you were paralyzed. You couldn't move.
I couldn't move anything. It was like the initial trauma was like, I guess you could equate it to like a stinger in football or something like that. Nothing worked. And I kind of thought I was in a dream. I typically keep my eyes closed when I go underwater, especially like the water we have here. It's not the cleanest.
Yeah.
So I'm like underwater and then I'm like trying to swim, but I'm like swimming with my head and I'm realizing nothing's moving. And that's when I thought, am I am I in a dream? Am I dead? Like what's going, like I didn't understand what was going on. And it was at that moment where I was like, oh my gosh, like I have to hold my breath. Like I can't, I don't know where I'm at, but I can't get up. And so I was fortunate that there were people there because I started to swallow water. And that's when things kind of got fuzzy. And I was like, all right, this is it. But they pulled me in.
So you were totally conscious, but you just didn't know if that you were conscious, basically. But you were in a dream.
Yeah. Yeah, I exactly. But once I started to swallow water, that's when I started to feel like I was fading away. Like that was it. I saw like, I don't know how to explain it, but almost like the white and black TV popcorn, like the fuzzy stuff. Like
Oh.
it just everything just started to feel real fuzzy, and I was like, all right, this is it. And then someone that pulled me up and out, and I
Was
just
it your
remember,
friend? You said you were with someone, right?
yeah, she screamed, and there were these four gentlemen. I don't know where they came from. Like my family's very Catholic, and they feel like they were guardian angels, which I don't discount that. I mean, I these beaches where the waves break really close to the street, there's lifeguard stations, but there's no lifeguards. It's not a place where you want to get hurt. And so I feel lucky that they were there because they pulled me out and I spit up a bunch of water, and then that was kind of where I was like, all right, what the hell's going on? And kind of like everything was adrenaline was running, but I was like, I can't move my body. What's going on? And so they laid me on the like at that point a lifeguard had shown up and he said, don't move him, let him, you know. But I was right there by the breakwater, so they had to plug my nose, and the guy's like, just hold your breath, get you out of here. And I just remember like a good 2 feet of water over my head as I'm looking up and everyone's looking down at me and they're holding my nose closed, and I'm like, I am in an aquarium and I can't move and I don't know what's going on. It was freaky, but you know, I was more just confused. I like, why can I not move my body? Like I could kind of feel it too, which later it was a good thing, but I was just like, I can't move it. What the, like what happened? It
So you
was
didn't
really
really
strange.
remember a couple minutes before. You didn't really remember. You just wow.
Yeah, it was such a weird kind of shock to my system that it just went so fast. And then next thing I know, I'm looking over and I see a guy, it looks like he's got a fighter pilot helmet on, and we're in a helicopter and he's hooking up an IV to my arm, and we're just flying to the hospital, and then it's just madness after that. It was bright lights and ripping my clothes off and cutting things like I had a necklace they cut off and asking me questions, poking me, measuring things. It was weird. And then
So you said there was a helicopter came?
yeah, so they flew a helicopter and landed it on PCH. So that's Pacific Coast Highway.
Yeah.
Landed it, stopped the traffic, put me in, and then flew me over to UCLA Medical Center, which is in Westwood, and because I was considered a high trauma case. So they needed to get me over there. Because with spinal cord injuries at the time, they had a steroid that they could give you, which would reduce the swelling. And the swelling is what causes the paralysis. So by getting that steroid, I had a better chance of, minimizing the damage and maybe getting some back, some function back. So yeah, it was.
Do you remember any of that flight at all?
Just looking up and seeing him right there. Like I thought it was Top Gun. I was like looking up and I'm like seeing this guy, he's got the goggles on, and he was just very serious. And I was just, like in this dark, it just looked dark. I was cold and I was scared. I'm like, what's gonna happen now? I didn't, how's my family gonna know? Like all these things. But I just remember like being in that ER room and my mom walked in and I could hear her voice. She's like, "You okay?" And I'm like, "No, I'm all messed up." I was cussing, but it was just,
So that was the next thing you remember, was like seeing your mom in the ER?
Yeah. I remember hearing her voice at least. Like I couldn't lean up. They kind of had me pinned down to this board. And yeah, I just remember hearing her voice and I was like so scared.
Was there any surgery or anything, or like did you pass out?
Yeah, so well, they started giving me drugs, morphine, which, oh my gosh, like I have like really bad memories of hallucinating and seeing all kinds of things. But what they did is they measured the sides of my head because they were going to put me in traction. So with traction, it's almost like if you think of a weight machine that has a weight stack on it. They screwed 2 screws in the side of my head and put me on what looked like a thing of weights. And it was to stretch my neck out because the vertebrae were like this. They were over each other. And the whole point was to stretch it out so that they could perform the surgery. So it was like a really slow process where they added weight, I believe, to get it to the point where it went back to where it's supposed to be, but kind of line things up so that they could do what was going to be a spinal fusion, where they went in through one side of my neck to put a titanium plate here and then went on the other side to put another titanium plate in, as opposed to back in like the 70s and 80s, it was a halo where they had bolts here and here, and your head was like in a cage with this protector here. And so when you turned, everything was kind of one with each other. And so I was glad I didn't have to have that. That would have been probably too traumatizing for me as well.
So they eventually got it back into place, I guess, right? And then they did the surgery. They did the
So it was a 12-hour surgery, where they basically do one part and then they rotate you around to get access to the back. And so yeah, it was like a 2-parter. And when I came out, I had a neck brace on, and then there were just a lot of stitches. And it was like 10 days in ICU, just trying to get strong again. Like I was intubated, so I had the tube in there to breathe. And it was probably like 8 days in, they were gonna decide whether they were gonna put a trach in or if I could breathe on my own. And my oxygen levels were pretty good, so they're like, let's try to take it out. And I was really scared because I thought, if I can't breathe on my own and I have to get a trach, like, wow, like going backwards, that really scared me. But it all worked out. They pulled it out and I was able to breathe, and I just started to get stronger. I think part of the fear was that by swallowing that water, I actually ended up getting an pneumonia. So that was tough. That was bad.
Right on top of everything else. Like
yeah. So but it worked out. It was really scary. Like I said, I think I had a family member sleeping there every night in the ICU, or at least nearby, because I just didn't want to be alone. But that changed when I went to rehab. At rehab, it was kind of like boot camp, and I'm glad it was, because that really taught me to be self-sufficient and be independent and kind of manage really uncomfortable situations, because that's kind of where I was going.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay.
I was gonna say, do you remember like your first day of rehab, like what they really
Oh, yeah.
like the first thing they asked
Yeah.
you to do?
Yeah. The first thing they asked me to do, it was, I remember it very, very clearly. When I got there after an ambulance ride, I went up to the rehab place, which was nice. It was really, really nice. Massive rooms where you might have to have a roommate, you might not, depending on who was there. I didn't have a roommate at the time, but it was a nice big place, and I was getting situated, and I was sitting up, and I remember the chief, like, what do they call him, like the head nurse, whatever they call that. She says, "Are you hungry?" I was like, "Yeah, I would love something." And she goes, "Oh well, I have pudding, Jello, all that." I'm like, Jello sounds great. Okay, so she brings in this Jello, and she opens it up, and she puts a spoon there, and she just lays it out. And then I look at my mom, because the whole time I had been in the ICU, because I couldn't, I could kind of do this. I could kind of flop my arms a little bit, which was great. But I couldn't really, like, this whole bringing stuff to my, no way. Like in 10 days time, I lost that ability. I was not doing it. I didn't have the strength, and I couldn't feed myself. So I was just looking at my mom like, okay, can you, kind of like, hey, can you grab the spoon and give me a bite? And this nurse, like, right when my mom reached out, she blocked her arm, and she's like, no, he's going to learn to do it. And I got so pissed. And I remember I just took the back of my hand, like it was really floppy, but I just flopped it and I hit that jaw. I knocked it on the floor because I was so mad. I'm like, I just want to eat, like,
Yeah.
but it was a good, it was a good lesson, like she set the tone right away. Like, look, man, you're here to work. Like, I understand that some things happen to you that aren't fair, but this is tough love, and this is how you're going to get better. And I totally agree. And I'm glad that she did that, because from that day forward, it was like, all right, I'm here to work because I want to go home. I want to be independent. I want to get on with my life. And that was something that, the kind of the mission that they had for me, and like that was my job, to be there was to work and get better. And so I appreciated that, even though it was hard for me to understand at the time. But
Yeah, you learned a lesson
yeah,
right off the bat. Did how long were you in rehab for?
it was 2.5 months, which, from my understanding, that was pretty good. I mean, depending on your insurance now, I think it's even less than that. But yeah, I had a pretty good amount of time to get to a reasonable place where I could do some stuff, and then I still was going to have help. I knew going home, we were trying to get someone to come and help with daily care, bowel program and shower and getting dressed and those kind of things. Uh, but I got to a pretty good place where I could sit in my chair, got to move around a little bit on a manual chair. And I was going to be home pretty much for a while, at the start, but I wanted to get back into college. And it took me about almost a year before I could do that. But I pushed off going earlier because I wanted to do more things on my own. Like if I was at school and I needed to go to the bathroom, I wanted to be able to do it on my own. If I wanted to, be in class and write notes and get my food, just interact with people. I wanted to feel comfortable that I was at that place.
Yeah.
And it took about a year to get there, because I tried to do so many things. And part of it was like dressing on my own and just brushing my teeth, eating, um, just interacting with people, really. I mean, feeling comfortable in this new reality, right? Because that was the other thing. Like I didn't want to be seen as someone in a wheelchair,
Yeah.
someone that was paralyzed. Like that really bothered me. So
What
yeah.
was what was your mobility like at the end of rehab, and then kind of fast forward to like the next point, like the next major milestone from there?
Okay. Well, coming home from rehab, I had like some of the basic tasks down. I couldn't really push a manual chair very far. So when they sent me home, I had a manual and a power chair, which was great that insurance covered it. But yeah, I didn't have like a lot of mobility. I mean, I could eat on my own with like a cuff over my hands. Um, I could empty my leg bag because I had an external catheter. I could wash my face, do some stuff in the shower, but like transferring and whatnot, I still needed a lot of help. Um, but for me, like the biggest milestone was getting to a point where I could pretty much dress in my chair. And a lot of people that have the similar situation, especially quads, they're not going to dress in their chair. They're going to dress in bed by rolling from side to side. They're going to have help. And so for me, that was a huge milestone. I did not want to take any drugs to alleviate the spasticity that I had in my body. Now, we're all different, those of us that have SCI, but what I thought about was, okay, spasticity is an involuntary movement. But if I can learn how to trigger it and control the involuntary, it could help me. So what I mean by that is like I had spasms in my hands and in my legs. So if I could learn how to trigger a spasm to make a grip, well, that meant I could pull a door open. I could grip around my pants and pull them up a little bit. I could, grab a book off the ground. Like there's things that I could do to do that. So I'll give you a quick example. Like I can't really grab my hand except using tenodesis, so the fingers kind of come in. But if I want to trigger a spasm, I can do that, which allows me to, sorry, it throws my whole body off, but like it'll allow me to do things that I normally thought were impossible. So I actually used that to shake hands because I was embarrassed of not being able to shake someone's hand. So I would bend my fingers out and I'd trigger that spasm and I'd do it a bunch of times and people wouldn't think that I couldn't use my hands. But it's because I was embarrassed, to be honest with you. But I learned how to use that to help me. So I spent that whole year really just trying to learn my body and understand like what was happening. Like why was my body kicking off the way it was? Little things, sensations that would tell me information. Like, oh, you should shift, you're hurting your butt, or oh, you probably have a UTI because you're having this sensation. And so I really tried to just understand what was going on and then how I could use that to get back out there.
Yeah.
And so it was about a year. And then that's kind of like when I was able to do more. And once I reached those milestones, I felt really comfortable going out in case I had a problem, like if I had to use the bathroom, if I had to hop on a toilet, or if I had to, change my clothes or eat with a group of people, and maybe I didn't have my cuff with me, how would I hold a fork, or, just trying to reacclimate myself with society and so that I could be successful and just kind of go through the motions to get to back to college. Cause I started at a JC, but I wanted to get into like a bigger school so that I could pursue a 4-year degree.
Did you eventually get a 4-year degree?
Yeah. So things really worked out like incredible. I hooked up with the Department of Rehabilitation in California. And, with that, they help you with all kinds of, like, they help you with school, they help you get books, transportation. And at the time I was taking a taxi to Santa Monica City College, and they paid for my schooling and books. And all they really required was that you checked in with them. And this was 96. So there's no real, internet's really new, right?
Yeah.
So I had to fill out a piece of paper and mail it to them that basically kind of told them how I was doing. And I would be very detailed. I tell them about my grades and my classes and things I liked, things I didn't like. And that was the right thing to do. And they, that really paid dividends for me, because a lot of people that were using the Department of Rehab, they kind of, I don't know if like sense of entitlement's the right word, but like they didn't go through the whole process. And because I did, like I had resources that were willing to work with me and help me, and it was great. They had a program where they were giving away these full-size vans with adaptive equipment in it for those that wanted to get back out and drive. And it was going on for a short period in Sacramento. And they asked me, like, would you want to get a van and drive? I was like, of course I would. Like, this would be amazing, right? These are expensive pieces of equipment. So yeah, look, what do you need me to do? And they just really supported me in filling out the application and going through all the the testing. And I actually ended up getting one of these vans, and it was incredible because I would never have been able to afford it. I think at the time, those vans with the equipment were like $65,000, $70,000. And it's just no way. Like I'm not getting a Porsche. Like I'm just getting a van, but this was so much more freedom. The thought of being able to come and go as I please and not having to call 2 days in ahead, schedule a ride, wait out in the curb. They might no show me. They might pick me up and take me to 2 places before I get to school. Like that was horrible, but I just did it. And to have this van now is like, wow, it was incredible. So
Awesome.
the timing of that was really good because I also ended up applying for a disabled athlete scholarship at USC, so the University of Southern California,
Yeah.
and I ended up getting it, which was amazing. That was a full ride, and it paid a stipend. So it's like a football player. Or do you watch football?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember Troy Polamalu?
Yeah. Steelers.
Okay. Okay. There you go. So I would stand in line with like Carson Palmer and Troy Polamalu while they got their check so that they can pay for their lodging, and I would get the same check. And I'm looking around like, okay, I'd get that check and I'd be able to help my family with that. And I'm not playing sports, but this was set up for that to be able to support people that want to go to school and they're disabled, and it was incredible. So I had this van, I had school paid for, I had my support system for my family and friends. It's like I need to just keep going. Like I need to just do this. And so there was no reason why I shouldn't. Like there's no excuse. Because I know if someone else had what I had, they would have done as much as they could possibly do. And so I felt I owed it to myself and to everyone else to like really take this as far as I could go. And so
Mhm.
I went to school to get my undergrad in accounting, which I did, and I got a master's in taxation.
Wow.
And the whole point of me going that route was I thought it was safe for me with a disability. Like I was really worried about what I was gonna do and like what's my career gonna look like. This is still prior social media. This is like I still had this blue collar mentality, or where am I gonna go and be a professional? Like how's that gonna look? Am I gonna be able to do it with these hands and this this paralyzed body? So accounting was like a good fit for me. I really liked numbers, and I thought I can sit in a cube and crank out tax returns and I'll be okay. And that's what I did. That's what I
Wow.
did.
So
And it
how?
worked out well.
So were you just started doing accounting right out of school, and that was basically your
Yeah.
career?
Yeah. So USC is really great with the networking. I had four offers from four of the five big professional services firms around there in downtown LA. Like I had offers from all four before I finished school. So I'd done all the interviews and everything ahead of time. I just when I graduated, I did a couple weeks and then I went right in and started my job. So it was wonderful. Like I
Perfect.
had all of the resources there. I just had to work hard, and fortunate in that regard. Not everybody has that situation where they just have to work hard. Like they have a lot of things against them. And for me, like transportation was taken care of, the school financial part was taken care of. I still had I was living with my parents and they were supporting me. Like it was just a great situation. So yeah, I just started working there, and that's yeah, it's history now. But I mean, I was there for about 5 years, and then I worked for a couple other big companies doing very similar tax compliance and consulting. And
So talk to us a little bit about abilities and where that came into play. How soon after?
yeah, so abilities, I created the company in 2013. This was after I'd had my first child, Brandon. He was about a year old, and my wife and I were living in a condo, kind of close to where my parents were. This was like the first time I'd moved out when I turned 30, and that was a big deal. Like that was another milestone. Is like I want to own my own place and I want to be on my own. And when I was 30, that was what was that? 2000. I'm doing this right, this math. Yeah, it was like 2007, 2008, which was like the worst possible time to buy any kind of real estate.
Yeah, exactly. That was the
So,
crash,
so
right?
I buy this really overpriced loft that, I mean, in hindsight, it doesn't, I still own it, so it doesn't matter, but it was perfect because I got to kind of customize it to make it accessible. I mean, it was already very accessible because it was an open floor plan and a roll-in shower, but It was my first home, and it was a really big deal. And I was so proud to be able to do that. And so it was during that time when we had Brandon, which well, it was a few years after. It was 2012 when we had him. And I was telling my wife, I'm like, I really want to pursue, adaptive design. I really want to make stuff. I come from a family of engineers, and I just wanted to design, but it was at the time it was just so cost prohibitive to do it. I hired a CAD engineer to kind of, take a design that I had and see if I could make it happen. And at the time, it was like a mat that would go in a stall, and no matter what way you were oriented to the toilet, your chair would not move. And the reason I wanted to do this was because I have brakes on my chair, which break the wheels, but it doesn't break the wheels to the floor, right? So if you go into a public bathroom that's got the little yellow sign that's basically says that they wash the floors, the cuidado piso mojado, like it that could be problematic. So I don't have triceps, so if I needed to transfer on a toilet, it's kind of to the side. And so I had fallen quite a few times. And I was like, there's got to be something out there. So I came up with this design, and I was working with the engineer. And anyway, long story short, I was about 4 or 5 grand in, and I never got a product out. And I was just so discouraged by that. I was like, I can't do this. I have a new child. I need to focus my energy elsewhere. And so I used the time to just do some YouTube videos and create some kind of quad hacks or self how-to videos of things that I do, which were great, and they got good responses, and it was a good way of reaching out to the community. Um, but it wasn't until COVID when I really got things rolling, and that's because being home, I was able to buy a printer because I wanted to show my kids the technology, that's a 3D printer. And because I thought we were going to be doing projects, all kind of things while they were home, and we did. We printed all kinds of things for their dioramas and projects like that. But we joined a maker group that was helping provide equipment to frontline workers. So we joined a group out of Long Beach that was making these face shield components, and it was really really easy. Really well connected Slack group that had resources, and they had gone to hospitals, and they were saying, okay, this group needs 400 face shields. And so we just got a file and we put it in our printer and printed it. And this little headpiece, which connected to another like 3M face shield that someone else was doing, like we made about 500 of those, just us, with our one little printer. And I saw pictures of people in hospitals wearing what we made, and it was like, wow.
Yeah,
Like,
you realize like the impact you could have.
oh, it got me. Like, and I never thought in my other job, I never got that feeling, like doing accounting, it's like you're doing a small piece of a bigger puzzle. And the fact that I made something by really doing nothing, and I helped potentially give this person confidence to do their job, or feel like I was saving them, like that was like, wow. So I thought to myself, why am I not doing this for stuff? Just doing this kind of thing for people in my own community. Why am I not designing and making products to make their life easier? So that's what I started to do. I just started with, okay, what's something easy that I struggle with? And that was, oh, if I use a catheter, it doesn't reach in a toilet. I have to use a urinal. Okay, well, what if I just made a really long straw that reaches the toilet, and then I'll put a handle on it so I can hook it on my pants? So that's what I did. I watched some YouTube videos, and because I had this software that I had to learn, and I typed in, okay, Fusion 360 straw or whatever, or something that looks like a straw. And I would listen to the videos, watch them doing the functions in there, and I'd have two screens. I'd do it on my one, and try to, I'd stop it, rewind it, like, and try to recreate what they were doing. And eventually I learned just little tips and tricks to where I could pretty much draw anything I wanted so that I could make a working prototype. And it just kind of went from there. I started making a few little products, shared them on Instagram, and people are just reaching out like, wow, I could use that, or that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, it was just, it's just been like gaining a lot of attention at that point. So, here we are. What was that? That was 2000. I launched my online store in, let's see, it was a little over a year and a half ago. So I guess 22, August of 22. Is that right? Yeah. Uh,
Nice. So
and
what's your most recent product? Like the most recent
um,
you came
so
up with?
the most recent one that we put out was, or at least one that we made that hadn't been shared before, is called it's a card gripper. So it holds like a credit card. So that way, like if you have to put in an ATM or even like one of those machines, the credit card machines, you don't have to have the fine dexterity to pull it out. Um, this is a huge issue at like when you're trying to go to a parking structure and either pull a ticket or put your
Yeah.
credit card in those machines. It's just very difficult to do. And even like someone with long nails, it's the same type of issue. So we made that and put it out, and a lot of good feedback in the store. And so we're just trying to make more and more things like that that really like people can gravitate to, that would help them, and then also keep the cost down. Like I'm not trying to kill people with my products. Like I would love to make them very cheap, but I have my costs, I have my time, I have my design time, I have a manufacturer that helps me. So I have to keep that all into consideration. But at some point when we scale, I'm hoping that I can bring all these prices down so that they can compete with, the big companies in China and that kind of thing. Because I don't want to gouge. I know that people in our community are on a fixed income, so I can appreciate that. But this is really more about just giving people the opportunity to live a better life, and
Yeah.
the life that I feel I had or still have. But some of those things just weren't available. These tools that could have made my life easier. I'm looking now and going, okay, well, we need to make these. But at the same time, the value of social media right now, like I was on an Instagram live yesterday with these two wonderful women from Brazil, and it was for autistic children. And I was able to talk about what I'm doing and connect with these families. I mean, how would you ever be able to do that
Yeah.
without the technology that exists right now?
Yeah.
And it's so fulfilling to me to be able to have a reach that far, where something that I'm just thinking of in my head that I can draw and make could potentially improve somebody's quality of life. Like that, it doesn't get any better to me. Like other
And
than if I can make it a business that supports my family, but being able to help people is just like it's a blessing. It's a true gift. Like I love it. I think about it a
yeah,
lot.
that's an awesome, that's just like the definition of a fighter heart story, you know. You just
Oh, thank
the,
you.
the comeback. Awesome, man. We're wrapping up a little at this point now,
Okay.
but can you give me some advice, all of us, that you would give to either your younger self when you went through this or someone who went through a similar injury, what you would tell them?
Yeah, yeah. I would say to be patient, and it's okay to feel the way you're feeling. Um, that's natural. Like you have to give yourself time. But at the end of the day, there's nothing you can't do. I think if you believe in something and you work at it, you can achieve it. I mean, you can kind of will it into existence. I mean, it's amazing to me. Like if I think back about all the things I've been able to do, it's not necessarily because someone provided it to me. It's because I really wanted it bad enough that I found out a way to get to that place. Whether it was through hard work or just poking around or just having a good attitude about it and being patient, like it will come. I feel like anyone's capable of doing so much, but you can't let a disability or a setback make you think that that's not possible. I think it's really easy for us to compare ourselves to others, compare ourselves to what the ideal able-bodied person looks like and what they do, and whether it's they're beautiful or physically fit or um, I really don't think it matters. I think at the end of the day, it's you against you.
Hmm.
And if you're able to tell yourself that, to challenge yourself to be a better version of yourself every day, I mean, wow, like watch out. Like there's so much that person can do. It's just hard to get there. You need to find ways to get that support and believe in yourself. And I think that exists. And there's definitely a community out there that exists. So you have to be open and be vulnerable about accepting that kind of help to kind of get you where you need to be.
It's good advice for anyone, I would say. Anyone who goes through any adversity,
Yeah.
which is everyone. So
Yep. We all struggle with something.
awesome, Mark. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Is
Yeah.
your website abilities.com, I assume, or no?
Yes. So you can go to abilities.com and it has links to well, really a link to our shop. So the shop is Abilities Adaptive. But if you go to abilities.com, you can get there as well. It's also under our Instagram abilities. We have the link to the store as well. Just you can see we have clothing as well as all the adaptive tools. And what I'm doing now more than anything is custom work. I really feel like there's a lot of different, things that people struggle with that maybe haven't been addressed through a company or a store or something like that. And like for instance, I have someone that I'm helping them with a valve on their feeding tube, just so that they can release it a little bit easier. So it doesn't matter what it is, even if it's something where I can help point someone in the right direction. I might know a company or a resource or someone that does something like that. I just want to be able to connect with people. So if you go to our Instagram or you go to our webpage, you can email us, you can contact us. Please send us an email. We keep a database of all the things that people are trying to do or achieve, and if we can help in any way, we will. But at least we can be kind of a sounding board and put it out there and see if there's someone else that could help as well. So
Amazing, man. Thank you so much. We'll definitely check out the website for sure.
great. No, I appreciate it. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, man. Thanks for taking the time.
All right. You take care.
Everyone else, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching if you are. We'll be back again next week with another FighterHeart podcast. Talk to you soon.